Hi guys, I'm back again for another year-end video. A little less nervous this time, and yeah, I played a lot of good games this year. I didn't play nearly enough good games. I didn't play enough of the games that came out this year, frankly, but I still was able to put together 10 games. Not quite as easy this time around, just because I missed out on so many games, but yeah, anyway, I thought I would share those with you, share the 10 games that I liked, that I played this year, so let us begin. First up, we have Yoku's Island Express, which I downloaded on my Switch around the end of the year. I heard good things. It's a really cool idea. It's basically a pinball game combined with a platformer where you play as a little cricket rolling a ball around. You have to go around this island and deliver mail, but you're using pinball paddles to travel around this island, and it's really taken taking pinball, using pinball as a launching off point for an adventure game, and it's kind of just taken it and run with it, and I really liked it a lot. It had some fantastic looking art, cool characters. The writing's great. It's got that unique. Every character has a unique voice, and it's got that Animal Crossing kind of fake language thing going on. And yeah, the music is great. It's got a South American kind of tropical feel to it. It's really good stuff, and I've really been enjoying my time with it. It's just a super charming indie game. I think it's one of the most charming ones I've played in a long time. So if you have a Switch or any other system this game is on, I'd suggest picking it up because it's really great. Yeah, so that's my number 10. Next up we have number 9 is Okami HD on the Switch, which I'm cheating a little bit because Okami HD did come out on other systems in previous years, but it did finally come to the Switch this year, and I think that's the best place for it. I mean, now that I can play that game in portable mode, it's just fantastic to have a version of this game that I can play again. I haven't had it since the PS2 days, and it was one of my favorite, if not my favorite, PS2 game. I think it's a ridiculously underrated hidden gem, Okami. I think Clover Studios deserves far more recognition for this game, because I honestly think it's a modern classic. I think it's one of the best odes to Zelda that's ever been made. It has absolutely amazing art that just really pops in HD, and there's no technical issues with the frame rate on the Switch like I had with the PS2 either. The music is incredible. It has this ancient Japanese feel to it, and the whole thing just feels like a painting come to life. It's really one of the most unique games I've ever played, and it's also based on it's based on Shinto mythology, like Shinto religion. So all of the characters and all the stories are actually based on Japanese folklore, which was educational as well as interesting. So I really loved Okami, and it's been great playing through it again. It's in HD, and with a portable option, it's fantastic. So that's my number 9 pick. Number 8, I had to go with, I had to throw this in, Fortnite. I know I picked Fortnite last year as one of my top 5. It still made it into my top 10 this year simply because I did not stop playing this game all year. I had, whether it was friends wanting me to join in on their games, or just going back to see what they've added, or just kind of feeling that itch to go back and play some Battle Royale. I just honestly never really, this game never lost its hold on me, and Epic has been so great about adding new content, about pushing for crossplay, about making this game run on every system known to man. I mean, they've been doing a lot of great stuff with this game, and it's been really hard to ignore. I really thought I would have moved on by now, but I haven't. I love the planes, I love the golf carts, I love the new mode that's more of a deathmatch kind of thing. I love the balloons. Everything they've added has just been great, and they've done a good job of balancing it too. They've done a good job of removing stuff that doesn't work and knowing when to kind of dial things back. And yeah, I mean, Fortnite has kind of redefined what a game can be, how a game can make money, what games as a service really means. But it's also just brought Epic to the forefront in a way that it never has, no other game has really. And And Epic seems to be using that goodwill for really good things, like pushing for fairer development, fairer treatment of developers through their store, even if it's not perfect from a consumer standpoint, and pushing for crossplay, pushing Sony to finally cave on crossplay. So, I mean, I have to hand it to Epic for really knocking it out of the park with this thing and continuing to do a really great job with it. And I mean, there's such a low barrier to entry. It's free to play. You can play it on anything. There's crossplay. It's great to play with your friends. So I still love Fortnite. I have to admit it. Next we have Into the Breach, which I was really looking forward to, being a huge fan of Faster Than Light. This was the new game from Subset, and it didn't disappoint. It's obviously takes some inspiration from things like Advance Wars, and I really loved it. It's definitely more small scale than Advance Wars, but it's more strategic. You have to think about every move you make. You have to think more about what an enemy is going to do before it does it, and you have to think about defending civilians more than you really do have to defeating enemies. So it's an interesting spin on a strategy game. And yeah, like the roguelike elements, the time travel elements are very interesting. It's different every time. You're kind of taking a different route through the world each time. But the way they explain, like you going back and starting from the beginning, is very clever. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that as well. Which I believe that just came out on the Switch, or is going to be anyway. I picked it up on Steam earlier this year. Next we have a game that finally made it out of early access, Dead Cells, which you can also get on the Switch and the PS4. I've had the Steam version since it was in early access. But yeah, Dead Cells is probably one of the best Metroidvania indie games I've ever played. It's so... It feels so good. Like, it just has that game feel, that juice down. Like, the animations, the sound effects, the sprites just themselves, like, look amazing. They're so well designed. The world is really well designed. Everything just flows super well. And it feels different every time, but you still feel like you're making progress. And it's honestly just, in terms of, like, game feel, it's one of the best 2D platformers, or, like, at least 2D Metroidvanias that I think I've ever played. It really does Castlevania and Metroid justice, and it does a great job of rewarding you for even, you know, playthroughs where you don't get that far. It really makes you feel like you're making progress no matter how far you make it. Yeah. So then next we have a game that I didn't spend as much time with as I should have, for sure. At least I wish I had. I picked up God of War on the PS4 because everyone was just raving about it. Everyone was saying what an amazing technical cinematic showpiece this was, and they weren't wrong. Like, I think it was probably the best graphics of any game that came out this year. I also think the way that it was shot with like one camera kind of thing, like it's just one camera shot throughout the entire game. I thought that was really interesting and cinematic, and it really made the game feel more emotional. It made it feel more kind of it felt like you were along for the ride with Kratos. It felt more like a personal kind of journey, and it definitely impressed me more than the previous God of War games, which again were amazing technical showpieces, but the gameplay never really grabbed me. It was just kind of repetitive. This time around, they do a good job of giving you more of a tech tree to fill out, and the animations and the combat in general, it just feels really amazing. I mean, again, it's just got that game feel that you love, and it's just that feedback, that visceral feel. Like, people really overuse that word, visceral, but God of War deserves that descriptor for sure. It's the same with cinematic. People overuse that term, but God of War is one of the most cinematic games I've ever played. And even the very beginning, when he's like, I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but it's a very emotional scene at the beginning, and it really got to me, like, right away. I definitely need to get back to it and finish it, but purely based on what I've seen so far, I'm very, very impressed by it. And I mean, God of War is a fantastic example of why Sony has been killing it this generation, why the PS4, in my opinion, is the system to own as far as this generation goes. Yeah. The next game is another Switch indie game that kind of caught me by surprise at the end of the year. It's Moonlighter, which is a really, really fantastic ode to Zelda. It's got some great little nods in there, just in the graphic design, in the music, in the dialogue, and the gameplay, obviously. And it's really got some gorgeous pixel art, some of the best I think I've seen this year. But it does this a really cool twist on Zelda, where you're not only you're like exploring dungeons by night, but then you're selling the loot that you find by day. But you're not just selling it to some shopkeeper. Like, you own a shop, and you're setting the prices, figuring out, what kind of prices people are willing to pay on stuff, trying not to flood the market, trying to get supply and demand at the right levels. And it adds a lot. It really kept me coming back. It kind of changes things up. And it's really held my attention a lot more than I think it would have if it was just a standard dungeon crawler. And the story is really good. Like, it's really interesting. It really grabbed me right off the bat. So, and I mean, the music is amazing too. The shopkeeper music is honestly still in my head every day since I started playing it. So yeah, Moonlighter's fantastic surprise for me. Number 3 is Spiderman. Spiderman, I, again, didn't get to finish. I kind of just rented it and played as much of it as I could. But my time with it was so fun. Like, I forgot how much, when a game is that well designed in how you move throughout the environment, you don't really care what you're doing. And I forgot what it was like to play an open world game like that. It's just the animations and the amount of control you have over Spidey as he's just swinging through Manhattan, and the amazing job they did of rendering Manhattan is just incredible. Like, Insomniac knocked it out of the park, like they really never have, in my opinion. And they really showed what they can do with a licensed property when you put a lot of love into it. Like, obviously a lot of people compare this to Arkham Asylum. I think it's kind of a different game in that obviously there were other Arkham games that were open world, but I don't think that game ever worked as an open world game, whereas this one definitely does. And the combat, I think, is better, to be honest. Like, it feels like you're a little more vulnerable. It feels like, guns are still going to pretty much take you down right away, because you are still human, right? But you feel like once you've mastered your abilities, and once you've kind of realized Spidey's strength is in his agility, then you kind of learn to adapt to his fighting style, and then you get better at it, and it just feels great. It's frustrating at first, but then when you get over that hump and you realize what kind of combat what style it wants you to fight in, it becomes incredibly satisfying. And between the web slinging and the fighting, and obviously the story is really super well written, well acted. It's just all around a really fantastic AAA game, and I definitely plan on picking it up once I get the chance. And so that was number. Yeah, I think I screwed up my numbers a bit. That was number 3. Next we have number 2, which is Celeste. Which again, I mean, as soon as I heard this game was coming out from Matt Thorson of Towerfall fame, I instantly knew I wanted it. I mean, and the more I learned about it, the more I wanted it. The story is obviously really, really great. It tackles some things that a lot of games don't when it comes to social anxiety, when it comes to self-doubt. I thought did it in a really insightful and a really interesting way. And on top of that, the platforming is some of the best I've seen since Super Meat Boy. It's really just that good. It's, again, good game feel, good juice. The animation's great. The sprite work is perfect. It evokes the SNES so well. And the writing is really good. The characters are super charming. There's really nothing I can't say bad about Celeste. It doesn't overstay its welcome either. It's pretty much the perfect indie game as far as I'm concerned, because it really tackles things that, I mean, I guess we saw that with Hellblade, tackling mental illness a little bit too, but in a different way, obviously. But I think it really does something that the AAA games just can't, in that it really tells a much more personal story. And it definitely struck a chord with me as someone who, you know, has issues with those kinds of things myself sometimes. So all around, yeah, just really fantastic, really interesting ideas in terms of like changing up the platforming gameplay. It's just super, super well designed all around. And finally, I'm sure some of you saw this coming. My number one pick for the game of 2018 is, of course, Red Dead Redemption 2. I mean, Red Dead Redemption 1 was easily one of my favorite games ever. I think my personal experience with the multiplayer really kind of colored my opinion of that game. I think because I was just playing it all the time with a really good friend of mine. We were just playing it online all the time, and it was just such a great game for like posseing up with one or two friends and just going out and doing whatever. So I had super high hopes for this game. I wanted the online to be pretty much the same as the first one, just kind of like expanded a little bit. I was hoping it wouldn't go in the same direction that GTA 5 did, and it kind of did, but not as much, like not too much. Like it didn't veer too much into the like sitting through menus and cutscenes and loading screens and doing the same missions over and over that I felt GTA 5 fell into. GTA Online just never hooked me, but Red Dead Online definitely has. I've already spent more time in the online than I have the single player. But to say nothing of the single player though, but I mean, is practically blasphemous, because the single player campaign in this game, like the story itself and the missions themselves, are certainly standard Rockstar design. They are still kind of linear. The failure states are very finicky. You find yourself failing missions, you know, when you don't think you should be, or accidentally shooting the wrong person and things like that. Like, obviously the controls aren't perfect, and people have definitely gone on about that at length. But I think the way that the, you know, kind of slow plodding pace of it, the way they want to animate everything, the way they want to kind of err towards realism as much as possible, has actually served the game better, in my opinion. Obviously, it's still a game, and you still want it to be fun, but the world they've managed to create and the believability that they've managed to pull off when it comes to everything, like nature, the animals, the sunsets, the thunderstorms, the civilians you come across, the horses, everything just feels so completely real on a level that no game ever has, that it's astounding. Like, I found myself feeling remorse and regret and grief for completely non-existent bits of code in a game that I knew weren't real, but they felt so incredibly real that it didn't matter. I found myself regretting things that I'd done. I found myself actually feeling bad about causing the same chaos in an open world that I normally is just run for the course. It's just par for the course. With this game, everything just felt real on a level that it never has before. And people have definitely brought up the TV show Westworld, and how this game kind of came out at a weird time when artificial intelligence and simulation is getting to the point where it is actually almost indistinguishable from reality. And obviously we're still in the uncanny valley. Obviously we still have a long way to go before we're going to achieve true photorealism, but I think people are going to look back at Red Dead Redemption 2 as one of those big steps that we made, alongside games like Half-Life 2, Doom 3 is another one, GTA 4 obviously is another one. This is another one of those games that's just a huge leap forward in terms of graphical fidelity, animation, physics, everything. Just everything that went into the design of this game made it so insanely believable and so insanely immersive, which again is a buzzword that people love to use, but Red Dead Redemption 2 really, really warrants that word. You are completely immersed in this world. And I've really never felt like this before with a game. And I definitely still have a lot of time to put into it as well. I don't know what else to say about it other than no one else has created such a believable such a compelling and such a interesting world, to me anyway, before. And I mean, if anyone was going to do it, it was Rockstar, right? Like, as far as I'm concerned, Rockstar and Nintendo, believe it or not, with Breath of the Wild, are really the only people, the only developers who make open world games that really grab me in a way that is compelling and doesn't feel kind of tedious. So, yeah, believe it or not, Red Dead Redemption 2 actually exceeded my expectations. It's crazy to think that 2 years in a row, like Breath of the Wild and Red Dead Redemption 2, games that I was so insanely hyped for, both actually managed to exceed my expectations. So it's been a pretty fantastic couple of years for games. 2018 was no exception in terms of just the wealth of content. The quality and quantity abound for 2018 for video games. So, I mean, I'm not too pessimistic about the future of this industry. I think we have many interesting things to look forward to and many exciting new projects on the horizon. So I hope you enjoyed my little video here, and I hope if you haven't tried all these games that you'll give them a try. So yeah, Happy New Year, Happy 2019. Here's to 2018, and here's to more great games. Peace.